Welcome to episode number 24 of the Pro Wrestling Zone here on Anchor and all other streaming services for podcasts. I am Tiger Height with Peanut Gallery.
What's up?
And we are going to talk about the Impact Wrestling tapings happening here in Las Vegas. We're going to all 3 nights. We have 2 down. We have 1 more to go. But we wanted to get this done because we won't be here in time. It'll be like 11 o'clock before we even get home.
Right.
So it'll be a long time.
Yeah. So we'll talk more about night 3, I think, next week, along with Osaka and NXT.
Yep.
So if you're listening and you're looking for Osaka, we had told you previously we're not doing it this week. We're gonna do it next
We'll
week.
do the watch party on Saturday if you become a patron, and then we will do the watch party live for NXT TakeOver Portland on Sunday. So that's how it's going to be, just because this is so chock full of content that we just want to make sure that we don't overwhelm you with a ton of shit. So let's talk about night number 1.
Well, hold on. Well, is there any news? Is there anything going on in the wrestling world?
The XFL relaunch was last night. Really good games, very interesting.
From what I heard, we didn't actually watch all the games.
We watched a little bit of it.
We watched a little bit of game 2 while we were having dinner, but yeah, apparently it's been doing pretty well.
People are liking it a lot.
Yes, they are.
The alternatives are really good. The presentation is a lot better.
Yep.
Despite us having like a really shitty TV, TGI Fridays needs to update that shit. But other than that, I mean, really, that's like the really, really big one. And then the John Jones fight where he won again, making him a record-setting 14 title defenses, beating George St. Pierre with 13.
Yeah.
But other than that, EC3 is hinting going to AEW, which would be probably the greatest idea that he has done for his career. Since he's doing all of jack fucking shit in WWE right now, which is totally unfortunate.
Yeah, it is.
Nothing of his volition, obviously, but I mean, he would probably do better in AEW anyway.
Yeah, I think so.
So, other than that, there's not really a whole lot going on.
Yeah, I think we'll see Goldberg challenging The Fiend.
Super Showdown's looking pretty good. I like the card so far.
It's all right. I mean, I'm surprised that they're putting the women's, the SmackDown Women's Champion on the line at the pay-per-view, though.
Well, they've already done the footstep in with the Lacey Evans-Natalya match. I think they're like, okay, at least if we have one, we're good. Let's take the title over there and defend it there, because I think that would be...
Well, I think they got the blessing after
the reception that people got, and the match itself was really good,
and people are all over that, and they probably want more, and it's like, oh, we'll just bring it over to Saudi. Another thing too that I heard, Vince McMahon is considering moving some of the pay-per-views off of the network. Did you hear about that?
It's not to what I heard. I did hear about it, but what I heard was he's not moving them totally off the network. He's just going to give the licensing rights to other channels along with the network conjunction.
I think that might be a...
The big one is WrestleMania going to be on Fox like Super Bowl, and it being recorded on the WWE network later, which I think is a smart idea. But it's like, okay, and also the projections were really bad. WWE got hit hard this week. With the stock prices just plummeting the fuck, like 9% in one day. That's ridiculous.
And I heard that the reason why is because they were making a lot of money, but Vince McMahon wanted to utilize the money for keeping wrestlers instead of, trying to
doubling down on what they have, instead bringing more in, which is just something. They're so overwhelmed. There's so much going on.
There's way too many of them.
Right. And, he's just trying to get this, he's trying to retake the market, but it's like, it's impossible with the product that you have.
Right.
Make your product better.
Right.
Then expand. But right now, you're your ratings are tanking.
Yep.
People are so disinterested that your live shows are going down the tubes.
Yep.
Your live attendance is going down the tubes. It's not about expansion. It's about doubling down on what's working.
Right.
And I think they're kind of going to that with building up the newer stars and maybe taking your Lesnars and shit out of there.
Right.
But right now it's just not a good situation. I mean, we could do an entire episode on it.
Right.
I don't want to talk.
I don't think that it garners an entire episode, but I think it's worth at least talking about because that was a pretty big news item this week.
Right.
And obviously it couldn't come at a worse time for McMahon as he's trying to launch his football league too. So
right, that was I think the football league in itself is different. I think it'll be fine. I don't think it's a difference.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what the networks think. But apparently the numbers were good, so we'll see what
the numbers were very good. So
anyways, so
keep up that momentum.
Right, exactly. So on to the main topic at hand here. Yes, we went to two Impact tapings, and now we're going to the third one. We were front row. We are on the left side of the stage.
We're taking the Majestic champion,
yeah,
so you will
see the Majestic
You will
champion.
definitely see it, yes.
Let's talk about night one.
Night one, we went in there totally not knowing what was going on, so by the end of it, I was so mentally shot.
There were 14 matches.
14 matches, so 3 explosion matches, and then the rest of them were Impact taping matches. There were no segments or promos or anything for night one. Most of it was just match.
They were just filming as many matches as possible. This was on Friday evening, so I think that the crowd was a little more.
They sold out the second night, but the first night there were a lot of empty seats.
There were, but I think that the first night. So I think this is how they do it for the tapings, though. I think that the first night, if it's like a weeknight or something, I think they'll have more matches,
right?
Because you'll have an older crowd, a more mature crowd,
right?
On weeknights, because obviously if you have families and kids, you're going to stay home because of course it's work and school and all that.
Right.
But so I think that's why they did that. Also, the wrestlers were fresher that night.
Right.
So I think they were able to even have some wrestlers do multiple matches, which we saw. I think we only saw that once so far. They're actually doing a pretty good job with having the wrestlers only do one match.
Right. No, they did very well. I mean, there were some. I think there were 2 or 3 people that pulled off double duty on night one.
Right.
So let's get into the matches at least, and kind of
right.
for our overall impression, we'll talk about that after.
Right.
But we don't want to belabor this as much as we are.
Right. Well, I mean that's really the point.
Well, there's a lot.
Well, we're not going to do any spoilers. We're not going to tell you who wins and loses these matches, but we're going to tell you what we had experienced and our initial impression of it.
Right. I thought night one. Like I said, I went into this totally blind. This is one.
Right.
This is 3 things we're going with this. It was our first show at Sam's Town in Vegas in general.
Yeah.
It was our first Impact taping, and then also we were front row, so we had no idea what to expect.
No, we did not.
It was organized very well.
Oh yes.
It was 3 hours of nonstop action, and it was very palatable up until the final match, where I think everyone was gassed out.
Yeah, I think everyone was gassed out. I was gassed out at the final match. Are you kidding?
Right.
But let's talk about some of the things that were happening. So we saw Cody and Jake Diener versus Madman Fulton and Jake Chris,
which was a pretty fun little match.
Yep.
An explosion match. We had Dez and Mahabali Shera, who got massive heat with the crowd too. He was immortally hated in this. Mahabali Shera was.
Right. And then they had a big grouping of Impact matches.
Right.
So they had Tessa Blanchard, Tommy Dreamer, and Trey Miguel versus Ace Austin and Reno Scum.
Reno Scum was hated immensely, even though they are from Reno, which is kind of like
Reno and Las Vegas have a sort of informal rivalry going on, especially with the colleges.
Right.
So I think that there was a little bit of that antagonism going on. It really,
and I really antagonized people just because I'm an asshole, and it was a lot of fun.
It was.
We had TJP versus Josh Alexander. That was a really good match.
That was a great match.
We had a couple of different ones with the North, and then TJP and Falaba.
Yeah.
Throughout both nights, and it was probably the most interesting of the rivalries that we saw throughout the show.
It was. Falaba really gets that crowd riled. I mean, everyone really wants
He looks. I mean,
that crowd.
I always say that Falaba really lost a lot of weight since being in here, but he looks a lot thinner in real life than he did on camera.
Yeah, he does.
Like, he looks freaking awesome. Like,
right.
He probably dropped 60, 70 pounds.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yep.
So really good for him.
Yep.
We had Willie Mack and Johnny Swinger face off. That was an okayish match. Willie Mack moves.
Willie
man.
Mack is good with the crowd though too.
He is. He's really good with the crowd.
I think he was more interactive night 2, but we'll talk about that when we get there. Oh, this is really funny. So Jessica Havoc and Su Yung match. So
it was a no disqualification.
It was
match.
a no disqualification match, but you could see from our perspective, because of course we're sitting front row. So we can see like how the wrestlers kind of perform their moves and stuff. And so you might not see it because of the camera angle, but Su Yung missed those uppercuts, and then Tiger Height was saying, "You're missing the uppercuts," and then she stares at him for a good like 3-4 seconds and goes with the teeth out and everything.
It was really funny.
You see that? That's why she's doing it, because of Tiger Height.
Yes, she was not happy. I got a story for after the fact when we were at TGI Fridays when they were all there as well. So Rhino took on. Let's try that again. Rhino took on Dave Christ. And Moose was on commentary where he was trying to pick a fight with Rhino because they have an ongoing rivalry currently.
Yeah, Moose is a gigantic human.
He is huge, and he actually competed on night 2.
Yes,
he competed last night. He didn't compete the first night.
No, he did not.
But that was a fun little match.
RVD and Daga faced off.
Rob Van Dam is so awesome live, and
RVD and Daga did a spot right in front of us too. At that corner.
Yep, and Katie Forbes she was just absolutely trash during the show. Not like trash like drunk, but the crowd really was hating on her.
Right.
Like
someone take the phone away from her.
Oh, no, she was on the phone the whole goddamn time,
right.
And it was really annoying. And people are like, because she wasn't actually yelling at anybody. She was at ringside, like, yelling at people. She actually wasn't yelling at anybody, so people were saying, "You're not yelling at anybody." It was really funny. It's like, I mean, at least play up the fact that you're doing that instead of whatever the hell that was.
All right. Well, after that, we got Rohit Raju and Zachary Wentz. That was a
really good match.
That was a good palate cleansing match.
That was a really good match. Yeah. Rohit got a lot of heat from the crowd.
Oh,
too.
yes, he did.
They did not like the Indians whatsoever.
Right. The grandpa there in the ring.
Gama Singh.
Sure, Gama Singh talking about Vegas and
having the highest suicide rate in the world. I'm not even sure if that's accurate. So
I don't think it. Well, it might be higher than usual, but that's not.
I know it's higher. I know it's higher than the average.
Right, but it's just because of where we're at. It's Vegas. You just kind of expect that. Okay, so Jordan Grace and Miranda Alize. Madison Rain is doing this program with Jordan Grace. After this match, Jordan. So I'll give a spoiler for
this one because it's important.
Right. So Jordan Grace actually christened the Majestic Champion with her women's belt after the
it was
match
really
was
cool.
Over.
She's really short live.
She is, and then night 2 she passed us and she's like, "Oh, I remember you guys."
Yeah, that was really cool. No, that was super cool. Night 2 had a lot of. It was a lot more interesting than after night 1.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
AC Romero and Joey Ryan.
That was not the greatest match.
No, it was supposed to be a palate cleanser for the last 2 matches after the Jordan Grace match.
So.
It was not terrible, but at the same time, it was very gimmicky with a Joey Ryan and AC Romero match. It wasn't like.
It was a gimmicky Joey Ryan AC match. So.
Right.
It is what it is. I mean, Joey Ryan's good at his craft. He knows his place.
Right.
Which is good.
Also, so he had. I will say one thing. after the match, they did the lollipop gimmick, and it broke. In the match, so a guy, one of the assistants was cleaning the ring, and people were popping hard, and we're saying, sweep, 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 and after he's done, everyone just went off, too. He had a huge pop. It was super funny.
He probably had the biggest pop of the night.
Oh, honestly, yes. There was another explosion match, and that was the second Ace Austin match against Falaba. Not terrible, but it was an explosion match.
Yeah.
It took them, I'll talk about that later. But finally, the final match was Eddie Edwards and Michael Elgin.
And I think it was a
best out of 5 series to determine number one contender for the world title.
Right.
It was a lot of fun. This match was pretty good, but I think the crowd was like, I was dead. I was dead.
Yeah, the crowd was dead for this match. But it was still a decent match.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. But that was the end of that show, and so we went and got more food because we only had an appetizer for the first night.
Because these shows start, so the doors open at 5, the show starts at 6, and I'm not paying for food and drinks at the venue itself because they upcharge.
Right.
So we ate before, and then we just waited until after. Again, it was only 3 hours, so it wasn't like we were like starving at the end, but we were hungry.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was a really fun show. I had more preparation the second night around, which we'll talk about here after the break. Right.
So we'll see you then, and stay tuned.
Absolutely. And we are back with night number 2 from the Impact Wrestling tapings that are going to be put on in a couple of weeks. I know that. I'm not sure when exactly.
I don't know when either. I think they're still on the Mexico television tapings right now.
I think they're wrapping that up, so I think in like another week or 2 you'll be able to see this stuff.
Anyways, we have a lot more to talk about with this one because it was Saturday night. The place was sold out.
So it was sold out partway through. The announcer said, we're sold out for night number 2. And it was sold out. The people had a lot more energy in this show, definitely.
Definitely a lot more families, though. There were a lot of kids in the arena that night.
I don't think there are going to be as many tonight because tomorrow is school and you get out at 9 and
right. So
and
I guess we'll see.
I think after the fact, night two was a lot more interesting after the show than night number 1.
Let's talk about what happened before the show even started.
So we went to TGI Fridays, which is in the Sam's Town Resort.
No, I said before. What happened before the show started?
When we watched the XFL and TGI?
Oh, you're talking about watching the XFL?
No, I was going to talk about I was going to say the bartender said that the wrestlers go in there and drink, so we stuck around.
Oh, we stuck around. That's after the show, though.
But we talked to them before.
Okay, whatever. Jesus.
Okay, I don't know what you're talking about then.
Well, because you're talking about something that's off topic.
No, it's not.
Kind of off topic.
No, it's not.
Anyways, the wrestlers hang out at the bar afterwards, so we decided to stay.
Yeah,
at the bar after the show.
Yes, but we talked to them before the show, and they're like, "Oh, are you guys going to do that? Oh, they came in here last night. They're probably going to come and hang out for a while." I'm like, "Okay, we'll do that."
So
we'll talk about that after we do the show,
right?
Because a lot of interesting things happen.
But anyways, what I was talking about was when they had us prompt to do yays, boos, Impact
like when we were actually in the arena.
Right,
okay,
so we were in the arena. So what they do for TV tapings is that they have cues. They have the guy that does the announcing that is like weird about the announcing for like the wrestlers coming out and stuff. So he came out and he had cues and he's like, "All right, everyone, When I count down to 1, everyone cheer. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Everyone was cheering.
Right.
And then he did the same thing for booing, and then he did the same thing for Impact Wrestling.
They were doing tapings for the commentators talking about the show. So there were a couple of times. It was like 2 or 3 times when they were showing the announcers.
And then they had like a group of people. It's like, hey, if you guys want to be on TV, go behind the announcers. So there was like a group of like 20 people or so that were going behind the announcers.
Right.
They were waving and whatnots and what have you.
Kind of faking out the energy. I mean, the crowd was still kind of filing in, and the people were back there. And WWE does the same thing, so we can't really say that that's a bad thing necessarily.
But the thing is, with this, what makes this unique is that because it's not live, they kind of do it all. They
together.
They kind of do it all together,
right.
Which I thought was interesting. But the problem is that if you actually don't like a person that you're cheering for, like why would you? I don't get it.
We all want you to boo. They don't tell you why you need to boo.
Right.
They just do it.
They don't tell you why. They don't tell you who they're mentioning. They don't tell you anything.
But that's
all
a common practice. That's nothing new.
Right. So if you ever go to a taping, especially if it's a taping where the show is a couple weeks out, so it's not live.
I'm sure they'll do that with Ring of Honor too. So
no, because Ring of Honor I think is live, isn't it?
Yeah,
the anniversary show is live.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's just going to be authentic reaction.
Right.
But to me, it doesn't feel very authentic. Because, who are we actually cheering for? Who are we actually booing for? I understand that it's actually like a... I understand it's a common practice, but it just doesn't feel authentic.
Right. It was kind of weird, but at the same time, I understood why they did it. Right. It's fine. It's not a huge deal. I'm never going to watch it on television because I don't watch the wrestling shows... like every week because that's over 12 hours of wrestling. That's a lot.
Yeah. So I and I don't watch myself either.
We watch the pay-per-views, and if anything important happened, we'll watch the segments that mean something.
Right.
But we get the general gist of what's going on.
But even then, it's just you can get most of this on the news.
Right. It's kind of weird. So anyway, we had Willie Mack and Forstro from Reno Scum in the opening match.
Yeah, that was an okay match.
Yeah, it was all right. I thought Reno Scum really did well as heels in this. People still hated them. It was great.
Right.
Trey and Dave Chris took each other on. This was a pretty good match. I liked this one a lot.
Yeah, this was a good match.
There was the Maserati, who was a local person who worked for FSW, getting an opportunity against Madison Rayne. This was an explosion match.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't?
No, this was on.
Well, this was a regular taping.
Yeah, this was a regular.
They didn't do a lot of explosion things.
No,
then.
I think they did. I think they did like 2 matches close to the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It was an okay match.
Yeah, it was all right.
And I thought it was really cool for Maserati to get an opportunity like that. I'm pretty sure it's a big opportunity for somebody like that to get that kind of exposure. We were actually kind of an offshoot, but the person who we were sitting next to until the 12-year-old girl kind of bumped us over, she was an older lady who had been going to these wrestling things for like over 10 years. So she knew a lot of these people on the circuit. So she was sitting next to us saying, all the security people around are actually FSW wrestlers.
Yes, that's something too. Is that they will contract out when they do tapings. They will contract out security to local wrestlers or
the job people are local wrestlers.
Or like the girls yesterday after the Sue Young match. Those girls that were around the coffin.
Yeah,
they are
the local wrestlers.
They were local wrestlers.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's cheaper for them. It gives them a good opportunity.
It gives them exposure. Hey, be on TV for 15 seconds of fame, blah, 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 kind of thing.
Right. It kind of gives them the experience to know how to compete on at least a televised stage.
Right.
Even though it's not like WWE large, but it's still there.
Deal with, like producers, and you have to act a certain way and do a certain thing. And
know your cues and kind of watch out for certain cues if you talk about it backstage and blah, blah, blah. And they did pretty good.
Yeah, and that's the unique thing about being front row for these events is that you get to see kind of how the wrestlers perform their craft. You get to see how they do the stomps.
How they really like over project themselves, and it looks really good for television, and it's a lot of fun. And there's some people who will chalk that up on that, and I'm like, well, basically what wrestling is violent theater. You need to act it up a little bit,
right? Because
the best gimmicks, we hear this all the time. The best gimmicks and the best people are their personalities cranked to 11,
right?
And it's really cool to see, especially with like Ethan Page, who was fantastic both nights.
Yeah,
he really understood that. But this was a good match. The Deaners took on Disco Inferno and Johnny Swinger. That was a fun little match actually. I like that one. Very palatable. There was a great non-title match between the North and Falaba and TJP.
And then they are having a title match tonight, which you will see, of course, on Access TV if you don't get spoilers.
Right, and it's for the tag team champions
for
as
the
well.
championship, so
And then
that'll be a good match.
Moose and P.D. Williams competed, and this is where we saw, holy shit, Moose is a gigantic individual.
Yes.
He's a huge dude.
Yeah.
And people really, he was over.
Yeah, he
Even
was.
though he's supposed to be heel, people liked Moose in Vegas. And I thought that was kind of cool. I like Moose. I think he's an awesome talent.
I think it's because he's flashy. And
Right. He's a heel, but he dresses Macho Man, and he looks really good, and he has really good posture. He's really presentable, too.
Right, he is.
But everything there was perfect. We had two more FSW guys. It was Chris Bay and Damian Drake.
Isn't Chris Bay debuting on Impact?
Yeah, but he's an FSW guy, I believe.
Yeah,
to what I'm aware of. I know Damian Drake was.
Yes.
So there's that, which was a fun. I'm not sure. I went to the bathroom at that point. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I had to pee like a racehorse.
Anyways, then we got Tessa Blanchard, Taya Valkyrie.
Now, did they say this was for the world champion? Am I crazy?
I thought it was.
They held up the belt and everything.
Right.
But I just don't know.
Right.
So, I mean, but it was a really good match. They had a really good match.
Right. Oh, and the other thing, too, about this is that, so the matches that we're doing this is the order of the tapings. This is not going to be the order of the show.
Right.
So we heard, this is your main event, because, of course, the announcer has to say this is your main event.
Then we heard, opening contest where it was, 3 matches in.
Right, and then it's then it's this is the main event of the evening, and that's the third match of the night, and then, the 5th match, they said, this is your opening contest. I'm like, okay.
Which is, I mean, that's a common practice.
Yeah,
I've been to tapings where they've done that before.
Yeah, of course, that's common, but you will see that if you go to tapings.
It was somewhat jarring.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird. Rhino and Madman Fulton had a pretty decent little match.
It was all right.
Sabu came out, but we heard Sabu was there because a lot of people were like, "Oh my god, I saw Sabu." I'm like, "Oh great, let's drag Sabu out because that's a great idea."
Yeah, that's all right.
Obviously, he's very immobile, but people still popped for him, and
yes, and apparently tonight also is going to be
a tag match. I'm going to assume
Dave and Jake Chris versus Rhino and
Sabu. I'm not surprised about that.
Yeah, we're going to see that happening.
Right. Rhino was really over on the shows too.
Yeah.
He's really popular, but goddamn, he's big. He's a huge guy in person, but he's still in really good shape for how long he's been wrestling.
And then Dez and Wentz and the Desi His Squad had a match. Again,
that was a really good tag team match.
That's probably the best tag team match of the night.
Desi Hit Squad is really underrated. They actually are really good. And, obviously the Rascals are really, really good.
Yep.
I always said, every time that they were down, I was like, do you guys need a joint? I actually heard Wentz say, yeah, I actually do. It's like, hell yeah. Because their whole thing is about pot and all that fun stuff. Doggott and Jake Christ had a fun little matchup as well. Honestly, there wasn't really a bad match.
No.
Jordan Grace and Lacey Ryan, who was another FSW competitor, had a match, and this match was freaking great.
Yeah, this was a good match.
I was shocked because
Isn't this Jordan Grace's second match of the evening, too?
No, she had the one the night before, and this one was also for the Knockouts champion.
Right.
I know for a fact this one was for the Knockouts champion, because Madison Rayne was at ringside again, trying to find somebody to beat Jordan Grace.
Right.
I mean, fantastic match, though. I was not expecting that. They had really good chemistry.
And then Michael Elgin, Eddie Edwards, again.
This was the final. This was the final match.
And you can tell. So it was about 8:20 when they started this match. You could tell they were just trying to drag it out.
Right.
But then what happened is I'm going to give you the result. It was a double pin.
It was a double pin.
Tessa Blanchard came out, and so it's going to be a triple threat match at Rebellion. Spoiler alert. But it's going to be a good match. So
this was a much better match than it was the night before.
Right. So
they kicked the shit out of each other, but it was really good.
Right. So anyways, quick rundown before we go to after the show what happened. Quick rundown for what's going to be happening tonight, where we leave here usually about 3:30.
And we'll talk about this on next week's show.
We'll talk more in detail about it, just like we did tonight. But we're going to see Rhino and Sabu versus OVE. We're going to see Tessa and Eddie versus Elgin and Taya.
Okay.
We're going to see the North versus TJP and Fallah Bah for the tag team titles, and then we will see Ken Shamrock as well. Not sure if he'll be in the match. but he is going to be making a quote appearance.
He will be. I know he's there.
All right. And I think there's a match with RVD in it as well. I can't remember who he's facing, but
I heard that.
There were a couple of other matches that were announced during the show that we, of course, if you're at the tapings, kind of know what's happening. But we're looking forward to another great night. So let's talk about. So afterwards, Tiger Height mentioned that we were at TGI Fridays, and then we went back there because the wrestlers go back there. So we were pretty much surrounded by them.
Right. So basically, this is the scope of the situation. We were sitting at the bar.
Yeah.
And we were watching the people come in. So we saw Josh Matthews and Madison Rayne come in first.
Yeah.
They went to a table, probably to seat and have some time with each other, and that's fine.
We saw Reno Scum come in.
And they did the same thing, so we're like, okay, whatever. And then we saw a producer and Jake Christ come in on the other side, and they sat next to us.
Yeah, I sat next to the producer. Jake Christ talked about his match with Daga, which was a good match.
It was a really good match.
And even he was commenting that we really do. We have good chemistry.
Jesus.
I know. Let me talk.
Let me watch you struggle.
Right, seriously.
So there was that, and then Michael Elgin came in probably about an hour after, since he was the final match, needed a shower and change and do all that good stuff.
So he came in.
He's actually really short.
And then there were a couple of producers there as well, and I managed to talk to at least one producer.
Really cool guy. Do you remember his name? I can't remember his name.
I can't remember his name either.
We'll see him again.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. So apparently what happens is after the tapings are done that last night, then they leave early the next morning to go back to the production studios, and then that's when they start the process of producing and editing the matches.
Right,
so,
I think he said they're leaving at like 7 a.m. on Monday or something like that.
But it was a cool experience.
We had so this was the table that was sitting behind us as well.
It was Taya Valkyrie,
Rosemary,
right,
Sue Young, Jessica Havoc joined later. Then there was another girl I can't distinguish because I didn't want to look back there and ogle at them, because with wrestlers you don't want to do that.
Right. So there's if you're a wrestling fan like we are, there comes a point in time where you stop becoming like fangirls to them. And if you remember way back, Tiger went to Japan for Wrestle Kingdom.
It was Wrestle Kingdom 9. It was 9.
Wrestle Kingdom 9, and he had talked about how, because of course he was in Japan.
The people who I was hanging out with, they really taught me on when you see a wrestler outside of that. Some people care, some people don't, but don't try to fangirl too much, because they're just people.
Right.
And we were talking with Elgin, kind of kept to himself. He drank a diet soda. He kind of kept to himself for the most part, which is fine. He sat at the very end of the bar.
Yeah, he did.
But we talked to Jay Chris, we talked to Jay Chris and the producer. And then Josh Matthews and Madison Rayne went over to the bar and talked with the girls on my side, which was kind of cool. And then we had Goldie right behind me hooked up, and I guess I wasn't aware of this, but I guess Jessica Havoc was staring at the belt.
Yeah, so Jessica Havoc was, I don't think it was Jessica Havoc, I thought it was somebody else, but anyways, one of the girls at the table with the wrestlers was she had her elbow on the table and stuff like that, just looking around, and of course our Goldie catches everyone's eye.
Oh yeah.
And so I heard mention of, look at that belt. It's like, fans. I'm like, yeah. I mean, but the thing is that it's actually the real thing. So
right. I mean, it's like a belt. This is not
your plastic bullshit. It's like a custom made leather
zinc-plated
belt.
We had some people look at it. We had some wrestlers such, and they're like, "Oh shit, this is an actual thing. You guys aren't messing around." It's like, of course not. And that's part of the thing as well. And this is the one thing that I did notice, and I'm not sure why, but when I was looking around, because I felt eyes boring in the back of my head, it was Sue Young. And I'm not sure if she remembered when I said you totally missed, or what the hell was going on. Maybe I was really overthinking it, and we just locked eyes a couple of times, and it happens. But it was just it was like, okay, obviously Goldie gets us a lot of attention.
Right.
And, it was kind of cool seeing that. And Peanut Gallery passed Josh Matthews on night one and said, hey, Josh. And he said, hey. But it's like, you don't want to like I said, when they're outside of the production of it, you don't want to fangirl,
right.
Obviously.
But the producers, they like to talk about their job. I think it's
the producers did. Jay Chris did as well. I guess Daga and Tessa Blanchard were also there. I did not see them.
They were sitting in a booth on the same side doing lovey-dovey stuff. They weren't doing lovey-dovey stuff. They were having dinner together.
Yeah, they were fucking on the table.
Well, that would I would.
That would have been noticeable.
I would be like, yeah, let's just pass by them one more time.
Not quite done. But I did not see them, and I think he's bullshitting. But it is what it is. I do know that, they do hang out there quite a bit, obviously. We're probably not going to be going to the TGI Fridays again because, one, we're going there already. They've been there fucking 3 times in the past 2 days.
Yeah, so I think we'll do something different tonight. But I thought it was a cool experience just to see the wrestlers outside of their natural habitat. Obviously, They're all staying at that hotel. And, we caught wind to some of the fans there as well. So it was a good experience overall. I do highly recommend that you go.
Go to an Impact show. Impact shows are a lot of fun.
They are. I think a lot of the smaller promotions are a lot more fun.
Right.
Just because you get the tickets a little bit more inexpensive.
There's the opportunity to actually meet these wrestlers in person, but obviously just don't talk about wrestling. Kind of talk to them casually like you would talk to anybody sitting next to you.
It's like, a good rule of thumb is let the wrestlers approach you first. Let them talk about it. Unless you want to say like, hey, great match tonight, they appreciate that.
Right.
But
don't sit there. Don't sit there and like shove a thing and get an autograph.
It's like, oh my god, what's this person like? What's this? They don't. No. Just don't do
it.
That.
Talk to them. If it goes to that conversation, then go with it. But you need to talk to them like you would talk to anybody else. A lot of wrestlers don't care if you fangirl. There are some wrestlers who enjoy it. But for most of the time, the rule of thumb, approach them like you would approach anybody else.
Right.
Just don't talk about the wrestling. Try to find out any other interests that they have because they could, and they really appreciate it that you see them as a person.
Right, exactly.
Sometimes they're larger than life, but, the wrestlers don't want to talk about wrestling all the time.
Right.
I worked at a bar in Colorado, and we had like Denver Broncos and Avalanche guys in there all the time, and you always, I approach them like I would approach anybody else, so I think that kind of gave me more experience on approaching somebody famous, not being an ass,
Right. So good rule of thumb is just don't be an ass.
And people are like, oh, Brian Cage was a dick because I tried to get his autograph at the airport. Yeah, that's probably not the best place to do that.
Yeah, it's like
don't try to get stuff out of them. Talk to them like a person.
Yeah, exactly.
And if they inquired about the podcast, we talk about the podcast, and I talk to them like I would talk to anybody else about the podcast.
Right, exactly.
And, I think a lot more wrestlers appreciate that because they probably get those fangirls and shit all the time.
And it's like,
when somebody goes up to them.
I think though, like in interacting with them in that way, I think it was I think it really showed them that we can be cordial.
And it's a respect thing, too.
Right, exactly. So, that's the thing. I think what separates us from the typical fangirls is that we actually have a little... If you really want to set yourself apart from the other fans, when you see a wrestler or anybody outside of the wrestling ring... Just treat them with respect. Treat them as you would treat any other person.
Right.
Just because they're on TV does not mean you're a celebrity.
It doesn't hurt that you go up to them and say, "Hey, I really like your stuff. I'm a big fan." Like, keep it into a couple of sentences. They say thank you, and if they have a seat or whatever. Just talk to them like you would talk to anybody else. If they come up to you, talk to them like you would anybody else.
Yep, exactly.
Because they're people.
Right, they're people.
They're just people.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of what I leave with.
Right. I
set of tapings tonight.
I super enjoyed it. I look forward to it. I'm gonna be going to Impact every time they're here. Also, I paid like front row guaranteed seats for like $122 for all 3 nights. Freaking awesome deal.
Yeah.
We will be going to Ring of Honor's 18th anniversary show as well because they're coming here. I'm trying to get Peanut Gallery to get the past versus present one as well, but he's being an ass about it, so.
Oh, shut up. Those tickets are like $85 a pop.
Oh, shit, really? All right, well, then maybe never mind. Thank you guys for listening. If you did enjoy it, go ahead and follow wherever you're listening on. Become a patron for next week because for $30, you get to not only watch us react, probably a little drunk, but you get to watch the show.
Right.
So if you don't want to pay WWE Network or pay, $60 for it, you can pay the $30 to us. You watch it with us on a private stream, on a private server, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep. And so, next week is the last Impact tapings, NXT TakeOver, and
New Beginning in Osaka.
So
jam-packed show.
Look forward to that. We are going to be jam-packed. The next time we'll be doing a unique show, I think, is going to be in a few weeks, I think. Actually, I think it's the show. Nope, it's not the show afterwards.
Well, we can talk about something because
Right.
I think the only thing that's happening that night, that's not next week, but the week after. The week after next week is Super Showdown week. Is
no,
it?
It's not. No,
Oh.
Nope, that's in 2 weeks. So, later on this month, we will actually have a show where we don't talk about a pay-per-view.
Don't quote us on that. We'll let you know.
But, I think so. And then, of course, that
It's Peanut Gallery's choice, but I'm thinking
Right.
about having a Patreon thing where the people choose, and we choose a couple of them, and then they vote rule about
Right,
it.
so then it's Peanut Gallery, it's my choice, and then the last, I guess there is no such thing as the 30th of February, but March 1st will be Revolution and Super Showdown. So we look forward to it. A lot of exciting stuff going on. We got to get back to doing some wrestling.
Yes, thank you guys for listening, and as always, be majestic.